Okay, we are live. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
We are the Screen Heroes podcast, and tonight we're going to be talking about Star Trek Beyond and Star Trek Discovery. I'm Derek, one of your weekly hosts. I have with me my other two regular hosts,
Woo.
Ryan and Ray.
Hello.
Hello.
And then we have our guest, Zach. Want to say hi, Zach?
Hi, Zach. There is an audio part.
There's an audio part as well. Zach just waved at the camera.
Yes.
Yeah. So for those just joining us, this podcast is done in a couple of different ways. We actually record the broadcast live on Twitch, which is a video streaming service. So you can join us on Twitch and chat with us, and we'll answer questions and say fun comments on the air. And then the video gets put on YouTube later, and the podcast as an audio portion gets put out on iTunes and FeedBurner, all that good stuff. So we try to put this out pretty much everywhere. So, Zach, I think this is your first time on Screen Heroes.
It is, yeah.
But
Thanks for having me.
we did do a podcast together for a little while. You can find Grid Talk on griddaily.com as well. And we're going to talk about Star Trek Beyond. So lots and lots and lots of spoilers from this point forward. As we talk about Star Trek Beyond, we're going to be reviewing the film. We'll be talking about plot points, characters.
Spoilers!
Lots
It's
of
in
spoilers.
space.
It is in space.
What?
Parts of it are in space. Parts are not in space.
I know.
So,
That blew my mind.
I know, right? Yeah. So keep that in mind. Spoilers. Why don't we go around the table though and talk about what our previous Trek experience kind of is, so that way people who are listening have a context for where we're coming from. Like, for example, I'm a huge Trekkie. I'm the Star Trek dude on Twitter and Facebook. I've seen all of it, read books, video games, comic books, etc. Ray, how about you?
I was a fan of the show, of TOS. When I was a kid, I would watch episodes every once in a while with my mom, but I mainly was just drawn to the bright colors and to the fact that there were
Shiny things.
women officers, which during the 90s, there was not a lot of military movies where women were officers, so that was cool. Other than that, I didn't really start watching it again until the Kelvin timeline, until 2009, because I have a big Chris thing with Chris Pine, and he's just...
And Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth was there too.
Yeah, he was.
You like pretty much all of the famous Chris's.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Christopher Walken, Christopher Plummer,
Both very
Crispin
sexy
Glover.
men.
Kristen Glover, Christopher Waltz.
Yeah, there you
Christoph Waltz.
Christoph Waltz.
Yeah, I love them all.
All right, Zach.
I grew up loving Star Trek, and I'd watch a little bit here and there, and I'd watch the movies. And it wasn't really until early college days that I got back into it and watched through all of the shows and saw the things that I had missed. But yeah, I read the comics, I watch the shows and the movies. I'm a huge Trekkie. I also, to give context, I'm one of the only people I know that actually liked Star Trek Into Darkness. I didn't think it was perfect, but I've liked it a lot. So.
Zach's starting the fights early.
Yep.
It's all good. It's
Come
all
out
good.
swinging.
Okay, and Ryan.
I'm the non-Trekkie of the table. I watched a little bit with my dad of TNG, and
You're a big Bakula fan.
I did like Bakula. I watched a little bit of Enterprise. He's my jam. I love Quantum Leap, so and I had to watch him in Star Trek. But
Oh boy.
Enterprise, not Star Trek. Sorry, I don't.
It became Star Trek
streams there.
Enterprise in
But
season 2.
I've watched the Kelvin timeline movies. I didn't know it was called that until like a week ago when Derek said something about it.
It's relatively recent that's been official.
Well, I'm not behind the times.
So, no, not really.
But yeah, I've watched the new ones. I've watched some of the old ones. I don't remember them, but
There's like a ship.
yeah, I remember there's a ship and there's some.
Kirk's and
I
some of
think
them.
there's some stars and some trekking. I don't really remember all the
Yeah,
details.
Usually people on the
Con.
ship and people out of the ship too.
Sometimes, yeah. And my dad had all the ornaments, the Christmas tree ornaments. So
Oh,
that
those
would
are
like
cool.
talk when you press the buttons, and I used to do that around Christmas time. Other than that,
Fair enough.
that's all I know.
Cool.
Yeah.
So real quick, for those who don't know about the name Kelvin Timeline, that's what they're calling the JJ movies, which is everything from the 2009 movie Into Darkness and Beyond. That was official a few weeks back when the Akutas, who are making the new Star Trek Encyclopedia, had to come up with a name for it that was official. And so rather than calling it the JJ verse or the Abrams verse or something tying it directly to that person, they're naming it after the ship that kind of is the beginning of that split. So that's where
I thought it was named after the unit of measurement. I figured the next reboot would be the gigawatt.
It could be if there's a
know.
DeLorean involved or a
The
flux
gigawatt
capacitor.
I'd be okay with that. I would see
Star Trek
every
has
one
time
of those.
travel, so that would be fine with me. I don't have a problem with that.
I'd watch that crossover.
You'd watch that? Okay.
Turn the Enterprise into the DeLorean, just like have a DeLorean on the front. I mean, I'd be okay with that. Derek would buy all the toys. Don't even let it fool you.
But
No, he would.
in Back to the Future, they make the DeLorean fly, so would they have to put wheels on the Enterprise?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
This has become a whole different podcast.
I'm liking where this podcast
That'll
is.
be. Would you watch it? Star Trek Back to the Future crossover.
Yes, the answer is yes. You would watch it.
So okay, let's go ahead and start things off. We have a bit of an outline, but we don't have to follow it. But what did you guys think of our two kind of new cast members, Idris Elba and Sofia Boutella?
I thought they fit in quite nicely.
Yeah?
Yeah. I was a little disappointed when I saw that Idris Elba was playing an alien at first because of all the makeup covering his beautiful, beautiful face.
He is a sexy man.
He is.
Yeah.
But his storyline was so Trek to me, and it was very much you don't need to know my motivation. I'm not going to monologue it to you, and they have to discover it for themselves and figure out who he is and what's he getting at kind of thing. So I really liked him as the villain. And Sofia Boutella, just like in Kingsman, was a huge badass in this movie. She was fun to watch, and her character reminded me a lot of Drax.
Oh, right, from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of an outsider with bizarre mannerisms.
Yeah.
That might fit in.
Yeah. I like my beats.
Yeah, I liked her a lot. When they first said that Idris Elba was going to play an alien, my immediate thought was he's going to make the best Klingon ever.
Right.
And
Well,
they obviously didn't do that.
After Star Trek
That's
Into
okay.
Darkness, it seemed like the next movie was probably going to be heavy Klingon.
Yeah.
But
And they're a good staple.
right, they are.
You know.
But and I was kind of disappointed when I first found out they weren't going Klingon. But the way this movie played out, like it was so much better. There was something new and original. But to add on to what you were saying, I really liked Sofia Boutella, and I liked. I don't know. I saw the first trailer, and she's swinging her little staff around. I'm like, okay, so they're trying to be Star Wars. They're trying to copy off Rey. But at no point during the film did I feel like they were trying to follow up to anybody else. They were just doing their own thing.
Right. I actually hope there's an action figure of her. I'd like to buy one.
Ooh.
Right, but the merchandising,
Toys.
the Kelvin universe merchandising has just been awful. They had like the
Right.
terribly done ones for the 2009 film, and so they didn't even bother trying for Into Darkness. And so I haven't heard of any toys for this one.
At least with the X-Men movies, you understand why Marvel's trying to bury those.
This
But
is Disney,
Right.
so you stand a chance of getting female action figures. It's not Disney, because the Black Widow never gets any, And
But I
then
mean,
the other
these
X-Men,
Star
and then
Trek-
the Avengers too.
The characters are fairly simple. Like, you can't get me a Kirk action figure.
Right. Well, I mean, you don't own any of them. Did you see the 2009?
No,
I didn't even
I
know
mean,
they
I
did
did
that.
see
They
them. I
were
didn't buy
really
any
bad.
of them. They were
They were
rough.
really bad. I mean, you're like, oh, you can't mess up Scotty. Or you can. Like, you can. They
Apparently,
You can.
Yeah.
If you've ever bought an action figure, you
Yeah.
can totally screw up.
You can mess them up.
I mean, this is a franchise that's been making action figures since the 70s.
Right.
And
those the 90s Playmates figures for TNG were great.
Yeah, those were really nice. The ones in the 80s for the first season are a little weird,
Yeah.
but they did get really awesome towards
Was that the one that
90s.
they had every single character from every single timeline and every minor, like the Ninja
Oh, yeah.
Turtles line that had weird characters that you only see once and
I have
Yeah.
a good number of action figures that literally show up in that way in one episode.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, you can buy. There's an episode where Geordi turns into an alien. One time, you can get that action figure.
That's the
Right.
best though,
You
because
can
then you
do
can
that,
collect the
you know.
specific thing you like.
Yeah.
If you don't want to collect them all, you can at least get that one episode that really invents something to you.
I love that. I've got Picard and Crusher from the Long Goodbye.
Oh,
where they're
right.
dressed as
Yes, you
gangsters
do.
and stuff.
They
It's just
have
great.
the Wild West of the, what was it, Fistful of Data
Yes,
set.
yes.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I really wish they would have, this disappoints me, but I really wish they would have made the version of Data where he's wearing the dress. That would have been great.
So, all right. So back to Beyond. What did you guys think of Krall's character, his motivation, his overall story arc? I know you like that it was kind of hidden, which is I like that too. That there wasn't a lot of monologuing because lots of movies do that.
Mm-hmm.
But did you think that motivation worked? Ryan?
Ish.
I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean,
There's been worse motivations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's definitely been worse motivations in Star Trek movies even, and I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it worked for me. I was okay with it. I didn't really feel like I needed to poke a bunch of holes in it. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it worked. Like we said, there's been worse. I also, it's worth noting that, not that this is a bad thing, but were he alive, Gene Roddenberry would probably not be too happy about it because he didn't like any villains or any bad things coming from within the Federation. And sure, he was pre-Federation, but he was all about this idea that humanity had evolved past the need for petty fighting within, our own kind. So he would have been disappointed.
Yeah, he wouldn't have liked the Makos at all.
Oh,
I don't
no,
think.
not at all.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a fair point. Anything to add, Ray, to what you said earlier? Or?
Well, I think that when you look at the surface of it, the motivation for revenge is always pretty flimsy and can fall apart with just a couple pokes. But the truth is he had all these years to get bitter and grow more and more powerful, and he and his few crew members that were left extended their life force beyond that, weird suction thingy.
Yeah.
I'm fine they didn't give a
never
name.
really explained that.
No.
That was a little weird, but
I'm fine they didn't give a name to it, or because since it was never important to the cast on the Enterprise, and it's not really important to us. But
it's just weird that they would introduce it and not give some reason why, because that wasn't what the weapon was doing. The weapon was disintegrating.
Right.
Yeah.
The weapon was a different.
So
technology.
it was
right.
just this random thing that happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like quoting Ghostbusters, baby, if I knew what it was called, I wouldn't call it the weird sparky thing.
Yeah, right. So I got to see it twice opening weekend, so it was a little more clear to me what some of that alien stuff was about. The fact that the drone workforce is really the whole swarm and not just some machines mining, right?
Right.
So when they kill all of those swarm people, they're just drones. It's okay. It's okay. Those aren't people. There's only 3 people. The tech he used to stay alive is a little unclear. It's very Trekky. It's a thing, and it does the thing. And why it made him turn into an alien, I assume that's what those aliens looked like, right?
Right.
And
He
whatever
absorbed their life force and
Yeah.
started looking like them. He could have absorbed Klingons, and he would have looked like a Klingon.
Exactly. That's kind of how I took that, which is why towards
It
the
just
end he
seemed
looks human because he's
Right,
been absorbing humans.
more humans. That's what I assumed.
Yeah. So now obviously
Still kind of ambiguous. You're just kind of guessing, and it would be nice to get a little more explanation.
If you're willing to go see a Star Trek movie, it means you're interested in the franchise. That also means that you're willing to suspend disbelief up to a certain point. there's certain things that you're willing to go, you know what? Okay, it's doing a thing.
It's doing its thing.
And a good example is the Universal Translator, which they actually use kind of a different take for.
Yeah.
I actually like the way that
Would
worked.
you guys-
I mean, I don't remember any other Universal Translator referred to in Star Trek, so it doesn't really bother me.
Oh,
Is it just on the ship?
Yeah, it's on their communicator, so that way everyone just speaks common,
right.
which is just English to us.
It's one of those things that you wouldn't even notice. In fact, you'd be watching the show and being like, doesn't make sense why all these aliens are speaking, the same language.
Okay.
You wouldn't
Now
have to be
everything
with
is
someone
much
who'd be like,
clearer
no, no,
for
it's
me.
in their badge. Trust me.
Yeah, it just does it.
Right, just does it.
I did have the little thing on the
lapel,
and
yeah.
I thought that was I liked the actual way it looked and functioned. I thought it was pretty cool.
She was an interesting character.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you like that? Because the first time around, she was more confusing than the second time around for me.
Yeah.
So.
She played her part well. She was obviously a mole.
Yeah.
She did that well.
Did anybody trust her in the beginning, at all, at any point?
I maybe trusted her. I didn't trust too much coming out of her mouth, though. It was more I trust the person, but I'm still weary of what you're saying.
Okay.
I thought
I
it was
don't know.
weird that as a leader, it was showing him being compassionate, but I thought it was weird that as a leader, Kirk was just willing to kind of blindly trust this person that they just met. But and they try and sell you on that as the audience when they're having their conversation and she's talking about how much she's lost her people, and that's a thing that Kirk is gonna resonate with, and so he took that personally. He's like, oh, I understand her, and so I think he let his guard down and maybe gave her a little bit too much, not control, but influence.
Leeway.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. I felt it was kind of pointing out the weaknesses of the Federation, being this happy-go-lucky family where everybody helps everybody is a weakness sometimes.
Right.
Because if they weren't like that, if they were the Klingon Empire, this movie never would have happened.
No.
Right? So I think that was kind of the point, maybe.
There's a Klingon version of this movie somewhere where they just shoot her and then they go off and drink blood wine.
And then the rest of the movie is just a big party.
It's an alternate timeline, Flashpoint, Star Trek Flashpoint.
Right.
Yeah, well,
dang you, Barry!
We'll
What
call
are
it
you
the
doing?
D7 timeline or something.
I like it.
So Sophia Boutella was Jayla. I assume we all thought she was awesome. Anybody not think?
I liked her. She was a little one-dimensional for me. She didn't really get enough development. I would have liked to have seen more development of her because I thought she was the most interesting character.
Yeah, I'm glad she's in Starfleet now.
Yeah, like I'm really hoping she's part of the crew.
That's what I was hoping at the end, that she was going to be a part of the crew.
Right.
See, I would love nothing more than that.
Uh-huh.
But since they got her into Starfleet, doesn't that mean she has to go back to Earth?
Right, has to go through training. But I mean, rules are meant to be broken. Kirk has not followed any of the rules as far as...
That's true.
And he tells her not to follow the rules.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. And Wesley Crusher got to stay on the Enterprise for like 3 years of his Starfleet training, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. They'd work something out. I mean, especially, if enough fans really like her, I'm sure they won't exclude her from the next film. Speaking of cool side characters, whatever happened to the weird android with the bald head?
Yeah, he was just gone.
And part of the reason why I ask is because they have a really compelling story arc with him in the comic series that takes place in this universe. I don't know if you guys are reading this or not. It's worth
Doesn't
reading.
the Orion girl from the first one have a really good
She does too.
storyline Like
she does too.
The writers of the comics seem to pick up way more than the writers of the film.
Right,
and that just shows that Star Trek should be episodic, or not episodic in the way it's written, but it should be on a TV format.
It's better in a serialized format.
That's it.
Like in an hour and a half, 2 hours, you only have so much time to develop these characters. Also, speaking of small characters that didn't show up again, where's Cupcake?
Yeah, so he was supposed to be in the movie.
Yeah.
He filmed scenes.
That's what I heard.
And they got cut, I guess, for length.
It's like the X-Men Rogue cut. Where's the...
Oh, so
I don't know who any of these characters are.
Sorry, so I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name, but it's from in the 2009
Oh,
movie.
right, okay.
Hufflepuff? I don't remember.
It starts with an H. I don't think it's
Hufflepuff?
that.
Maybe.
No, but
he's kind of a Hufflepuff.
In the 2009 movie, it's the guy that Kirk gets in the bar fight with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Doesn't Cupcake.
I mean, I vaguely remember the bar fight.
They have a little back and forth in the 09 movie because Kirk keeps going from this nobody to the captain back to a nobody, and he keeps crossing this guy's path.
Right.
He's in Into Darkness for half a second.
He is. It was kind of a cool moment.
Yeah.
He was in the comics as well.
But it's got to be disappointing to be like, I'm in this movie, and then you're not.
Yeah.
Jenna Malone probably knows what that feels like.
How does it suck to get your part cut?
Right? Like, it's not like a TV show where these things just happen. This was a blockbuster movie, and 2 weeks ago, this guy was really excited to be in it, so I don't think anybody told him.
No. His whole family showed up at the premiere. His mom was all excited and called him right after the film and said, where were you? I didn't see you.
So, for some of the other characters, I think it was really interesting that, the android's just gone. The Orion woman, she's there. Carol Marcus is just gone.
Right.
Which I don't remember in the comic books if there's a reason for that.
I don't either. But if there was, it wasn't a good enough one to be memorable.
Right. So she's just gone all of a sudden, and so it's a little interesting how they handled that. But so for those listening to this who tried to watch the Twitch stream, we are having technical difficulties for that. We're trying to get it to work. It says that we're streaming, but it also says that we're not online, so you can catch this on YouTube in the video format as well. What did you guys think, though, if we're talking about some more minor characters, what did you guys think about Keenzer and the cold that he had with the acid snot?
Who cares?
It was a little cheesy, but I liked it. But I also, I love Keenzer. The lack of Star Trek merchandise disappoints me, and I really enjoy Keenzer. I wish there was, a tiny little plush Keenzer that
I would own that.
I would, too. I would probably buy a couple so that, my kids wouldn't play with mine.
I thought he was an interesting-looking character, and this bit was kind of cool, I guess, or snot, or whatever it was. But
very,
beyond that, it was such a small...
I like Scotty shouting at him. It's hilarious.
The two of them have a really good
dynamic. Yeah, they're a lot of fun. I liked it. There were some people on Twitter who thought it was just really stupid. It's silly.
Right, but people also forget that this is a reboot movie series about a old TV show that was occasionally very silly and cheesy. So, I mean, I'm not going to begrudge them doing something a little cheesy in the new movies.
I just started doing a rewatch with him not too long ago, and we're like 5, 6 episodes in.
Give or take, whichever number the enemy within is.
So, every single episode so far has had something dramatic and something very cheesy, and I've laughed and I've also gotten, whoa. So, it's
part of the charm of it.
Yeah. So that brings us to a kind of a good point.
Sorry, really fast. There are quite a few animal species on the planet that have acid mucus, so not a big deal. Just saying.
Oh, just like around in general?
Yeah, on Earth already.
Oh, on Earth.
There
yeah. And
animals that have acid
And let's not forget, the Alien movie.
Right, which uses acid blood, quite often. So that worked for me. And it worked mainly for me because the way they escape, they get caught again. So that wasn't like the great escape for them.
Right. If it was Keynes or Snot Ex Machina, that would be a little much.
But it wasn't. Like they learn a little bit of information and they get caught again. They could have overheard guards talking at the same. You know what I mean? So that was fine.
So I'm looking at your outline.
Sure.
And I'm surprised you didn't put the cast of the crew that we followed for 3 movies now. And what I personally really enjoyed in this movie is that they broke it up. And instead of Kirk and Spock together or Spock and Uhura, we get to see 3 different couples of the main 6 people split up to where I'm not even sure Uhura and Sulu have talked before this. Mm-hmm. It's been that segregated, I guess, or where the crew only interacts with a few people on screen. So it was very enjoyable for me to watch Spock and Bones.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think Bones was probably the highlight of the film for me. I thought Carl Urban knocked it out of the park again, and he got the best lines, and I relate to him most probably as a character. And so, I thought he was great. Yeah, and seeing them together was a lot of fun.
I agree.
Again, Star Trek is so good in a serialized format because in TV shows, you have a lot of those episodes where they're the writers are what do we do? Well, these 2 characters haven't interacted, so let's do that. So the fact that this movie was able to accomplish some of that was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the pairing up. I loved that the interactions between Bones and Spock were so close in spirit to the original series and the original movies and how they talk to each other. But at the same time, it kind of admitted some things they never were willing to really say before about how they really are very close friends. They're not just friends of Kirk. They are friends of each other.
And I think that happened in part because the Kelvin versus Spock is a very different Spock. He's much younger. He's more emotional.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who don't like that. I've enjoyed the different take on that character.
I have too.
So.
I also liked that it was heavier on Chekhov.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's so bittersweet.
Right? It is.
And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but towards the end, when Kirk referencing an old film, when they're all in the bar together and he says to absent friends, the next thing that happens is that it cuts to Chekhov. And I don't know if that was intentional or just kind of happened, or if they went in and did that right after he died when they were doing post-production stuff. But that was kind of a bittersweet touch.
Yeah, there was some speculation about that seemed too fitting for that to be an accident.
Yeah.
Not that it was over the top, it was perfect, but people just assumed that was added in later as some B-roll that they got.
Mm-hmm. And it was so short, and it's so one of the things that this movie did very well was the subtlety. That was subtle, whether it was intended or not. You also have there was something else that happened earlier in the film that I thought was I don't know if you wanted to talk about this or not, but the whole Sulu being gay thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
It was subtle and it wasn't over the top. It wasn't a big deal, and I feel like that's exactly what it should be because the point is we're living in the future. Who cares?
And that's why I really liked it too, because it wasn't made a big deal. Nobody says it. It's not spoken out loud. It's just Kirk's monologuing his his kind of emo-ish thing that he's got going on.
He sees them walking off together, and it's not like the crew's going oh my gosh, did you see he's gay? No, nobody cares. It's oh, cool, he's...
My biggest problem with representation in films now is that a lot of people who don't understand what it means to be part of a certain lifestyle, walk a certain path, is they just shoehorn something in. You have the token female or the token gay character, and they're we'll just have them be gay their entire time. it's not their personality. That's not who they are as a person.
Right.
I mean, we're all heterosexual people. Being heterosexual isn't something we think about day in and day out. We don't just walk in and announce it. The fact that this was a seemingly passing moment through Sulu's life, and to him it was no different than any other day, made it feel no different to me than any other day.
We don't have to come out as straight. So like the character of Sulu didn't have to like come out because it was just a thing. It was not a big deal.
Yeah.
It was just him with his family.
I loved that they did give him the daughter that grows up to be on the Enterprise.
That was great.
Because there were some people like kind of getting angry when they found out about the reveal of him being gay prior to the film coming out. Was they were saying, well, we met his daughter in the other timeline, which.
But that doesn't matter. It's so nonsense.
It doesn't matter.
We at this table have friends who have gay parents.
Yes.
They exist. I mean, so.
I actually hope that maybe they haven't just talked about this yet, but in the Star Trek universe, men can give birth. I hope that's a thing.
We're going to see a
I'll
pregnant James Tiberius Kirk.
Yes.
Well, the Trip did get pregnant.
That's true. Yeah, Trip did get pregnant in Enterprise. That has happened, but it was an alien. So.
Right. And it was kind of an embarrassing. Like it was a funny episode, but it was.
But it was tackling that concept a bit because Trip was really self-conscious about it and really had a lot of issues with it, and it was very interesting.
Oh, what a sad little boy.
Yeah. But anyway, what did you guys think though? If we're talking a little bit about kind of nods to things in the real world, because that was a big nod to George Takei. What did you guys think about the tributes to Nimoy and Anton in the film?
I thought they were deserved and well done and not over the top at all. I mean, they don't need to build a shrine to these people. The fans will do it for them.
We already have been,
Yeah.
Especially Nimoy. I mean, Nimoy's been a big deal for the last. I mean, he died a year and a half ago now. We're still talking about it. Like it's still a big thing that people recognize.
I mean, Star Trek Online put a statue of him on Vulcan that you can go and visit. And it's pretty cool. I didn't go for the ceremony that they had. I missed that, but I went to just visit it. It's pretty neat.
William Shatner wrote a book, which he also narrated if you want to get the audiobook, about like his friendship with Nimoy. So
that's cool. I gotta check that. I guess I missed that.
It was good. It was sad. It was rough to. There were parts where they were funny and great, but some of the ending stuff, of course, was a little sad.
For me, the initial tribute where it just says that Ambassador Spock has died. I mean, that was very sad, and I was like, oh, that was a nice way to do it. That's touching. That's cool, and it was a good motivation for Kelvin Spock's character.
Absolutely.
But at the end, when they show the picture of the original crew on, I guess that would have been in the 5th movie or the 6th movie. I couldn't find that actual photo anywhere.
Right.
But like, just damn, that was intense for me.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you guys. I probably have the strongest connection to that, but.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really intense for me. It was a nice nod. All of it was. I enjoyed it, but I didn't have a strong emotional reaction one way or another. I didn't really have as much of a connection to Spock as you guys obviously did. So I thought he was great with the fans. Like, I really appreciate the stuff he did for fans and in comic book conventions, coming out and talking and being friendly with fans. But beyond that, I didn't really.
It was especially sad because so many of those actors are now gone.
Right?
Yeah, aren't like all of them gone except for Shatner?
Yeah, Shatner, Takei, Walter Koenig, and Nichelle Nichols. Yeah, so
Nichelle Nichols.
Yeah, so basically it's Scotty, Bones.
It's like half of them in the photo are no longer with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean they were the oldest 3, give or take. I know Shatner's birthday is about the same as Nimoy's, so I might be wrong there. But they're older. Walter Koenig is much younger than the rest, for example. But did anybody find it interesting? Because after I got past like kind of the emotional aspect of it, did anybody find it interesting that they were showing a picture of the Prime Timeline crew in a Kelvin universe movie?
No.
I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
You didn't think that was something bigger than that?
Because my thought is, I mean, obviously it came from Ambassador Spock's, his items, his belongings.
And to him, those crew members had died long before.
Right.
Like
long time ago.
He never saw Kirk again. It was in Generations, right, where he died?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now he would have seen, I mean, this is beta canon stuff, but he would have seen Scotty and Bones possibly.
Right.
But that would have been about it as far as...
But at that point, according to the comics, he was hanging out with the TNG crew.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like if you're a fan of just the new movies and you haven't seen the old stuff and you're not interested in the old stuff, like that one picture is not enough to like throw you off. It's not like you look at that and you're like, who are these people? Like, I mean,
No, I knew who it was.
right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows
I'm a
these are
casual
iconic
fan.
characters that everyone
Sure.
knows who they are. Even if you don't, like, it's not gonna ruin the movie to be like, oh, look, it's a picture of some old people. Like, that's not gonna bother you.
They also haven't ever shied away from the fact that this is an alternate reality, and that
Yes.
Spock got sucked in from that. He can't go back to
Right.
his old life. So it totally made sense for me. We all would keep pictures of our loved ones if we were going on space trips, getting away from them.
That's very fair. I guess I took it as just this really, it was the first time they had blatantly acknowledged the other actors in that crew, because it had just been Spock and Nero's crew. That had really been it. And this was the first time they were like, nope, this is a thing that still exists separate from all of this. And for me, that was really cool. Maybe that's heightened by the Star Trek Discovery announcement a couple of days later, but
it's an exciting time to be a Trekkie.
It is. So, all right, so we have some other stuff that we can talk about before we move on to Star Trek Discovery. What did you guys think about the Yorktown space station?
It was beautiful.
I thought it looked like a Christmas ornament.
Thanks, Bones.
I did like it.
Is that a compliment or an insult? I can't
when
tell.
when they went inside and you got to see kind of how the inside worked, I thought it was a huge waste of money, but it was like not in the movie, but for the people who actually built it.
There's no money in the Federation.
Right.
Okay, well, it was a huge waste of resources because you could have probably been a lot more efficient in your construction, but it was cool, visually appealing for sure, yeah.
And it was definitely set up for that final fight scene where they're soaring around.
Oh, yeah.
I like Mass Effect, the video game series, an awful lot.
Oh, yeah,
This reminded me a
reminiscent.
lot of the Citadel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I had heard some people say that, so
Yeah.
that's interesting. Okay. So, speaking of that fight scene, what did you guys think of the final fight between Kirk slugging it out with Crawl?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was really good. It reminds me a lot of the fisticuffs he got into during TOS.
He doesn't have to do the judo chop. But
Well, the hammer fist of the Gorn.
right.
It was good. I mean, Justin Lin is an action director, and
Yeah.
I mean, that was pretty obvious when you watch this movie. All the action scenes were done beautifully, and I think that was a little bit more intimate of a fight scene, so I did like that about it, yeah.
Cool.
And I like the action scenes, since you were talking about that. I like that they didn't detract from
Yeah, it didn't really play out.
anything else.
Yeah.
It wasn't like just all flash and no substance. There was a lot of stuff happening at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, speaking of Justin Lin, so those who haven't realized this by now, he directed Fast and Furious 4, 5, and 6. I know those aren't their actual names, but that's complicated. So he's an action guy. He's a fast-paced race car guy.
And there were scenes that were like, okay.
Right.
But he is a Trekkie at heart, and that's why he really wanted to do this movie. And I actually thought
I didn't know that. That's
Oh yeah, he's a huge Trekkie.
Okay.
So
we were in better hands than we thought.
Yeah, I mean, I had kind of been following that really closely. When I found out who he was, I immediately felt much better about things. But I felt like he blended the two styles really well.
Yeah.
Because he kept so much of the tone and the spirit of the original series, but brought in that sense of amped up action that you kind of need in a 21st century movie.
Right.
The nods to the original series this time weren't so overt. I feel like in Into Darkness and the 2009 film, it was like, hey guys, there's a tribble here. Do you get it? Do you get it? There's tribble. Like,
that was because they needed the super blood. But I get your point. There were so many little Easter eggs. I mean, the scene where Bones comes in to talk to Kirk about his birthday, and Kirk's drinking Saurian brandy, which is from the original series, and the absent friends toast is from the movies, and the line that Chekhov has about scotch or whiskey or whatever being invented by an old woman in Russia, that's from the old show too. Like these tiny little things were thrown throughout the movie that were just these callbacks to the original series that only somebody who really knew the show would know any of that.
Right. It didn't punish you for not knowing anything about Trek, but if you do know about Trek and then the old stuff, like it was a fun nod.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did feel like I was missing things. So like that, like you say that, it didn't pull me out of the movie, but there were definitely things where I was like, I'm sure this is a reference to something.
Was that because the entire audience was like laughing, like
No, actually, there was not a lot of people in the theater when you see it at 4:45 on a Tuesday. But it was just the way that it was written. It seemed like they were kind of. Just the way that the speaking came across, I guess. I don't know. I could tell there was something I was probably missing there, but it didn't pull me out of the movie or do anything.
No, that's fair. I mean, that's how I feel in a lot of superhero movies because I don't know the source material as well. Especially like Marvel does it really well. Where they drop 1,000 Easter eggs in these movies. I catch,
and then you go read about them an hour later.
Do you know what it was like to be the only person in the theater who knew who Thanos was.
Right. I
That
knew who he
awful.
was.
That was awful.
I knew who
we
Thanos
didn't know each other,
but,
and I was
that was the most
one.
Googled thing in the world for like an hour after the premiere.
Who is this guy?
Yeah.
But, you know,
Purple
a lot of, like,
guy floating in space chair.
A lot of, like, who the future bad guys are going to be in XYZ movie and stuff, I miss most of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in DC, I catch more of it, but Star Trek, I catch 99% of those things.
That's
you know.
good.
So I enjoyed that stuff. You know, is my thing. Like, so now I kind of know what that feels
It's there for people like you.
It was there for you.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you, Justin Lin and Simon Pegg. And
Well, that was the other thing. Like, I wanted to be optimistic about this movie. I was cautiously optimistic. I wanted to be excited about this, though, because Simon Pegg is a Trekkie, and knowing that he was going to be writing it and he was putting a lot of work into it, that was exciting.
Yes. Yeah. I did think it was a little funny. I don't have a problem with it, but it was a little funny that he kind of gave himself that really important speech to kick everything in gear. But that was fine. I just thought it was funny. That's all.
But that's all he gave himself.
I would do that.
That's really all he gave himself.
No, he gave himself the hot chick kicking ass.
That's true. With a partner the whole movie.
That's true.
I ship them. I think that would be great.
Oh yeah, I
They're
feel about
adorable.
that.
Weird looking babies, that's for sure.
I'm cool with it. It's Trek.
They adopt Keenser, and he's always getting in the way. Like, this is a sitcom I want. I mean, forget Star Trek Discovery. I want Simon Pegg and
Keenser, the Scotty and Keenser adventures.
Yeah, absolutely.
So usually when we review movies on this podcast, we talk about the negative things also,
Sure.
and there has been no discussion of anything negative about this movie. Did you guys have anything you didn't like about the movie?
No.
I mean, surely there's something that you didn't like about the movie.
The movie is pretty solid because they kept it simplistic. So if you don't have a million different side plots going on, you don't risk a convolution where there's plot holes. So by keeping it simplistic, it reminded me so much more of previous Trek that I've seen where it was just straight line, A to B, we got it. That being said, there was probably more character development that could have been throughout that. Like you said, Jayla wasn't... She wasn't
explored as much as...
Yeah. Uhura and Sulu, out of all the pairs, was probably the weakest. They didn't get as much time. Uhura had some good moments with Krull, but Sulu didn't really have anything.
That's the downside of not being paired with Kirk, Spock, or Bones.
Yeah.
You know. I will say one scene that I had a problem with.
Or the new hot chick.
Yeah. But he also wrote the movie, so...
Right.
So while I liked that they went back to the saucer to collect the device, not really to collect the device, but to see if she was trustworthy. I liked that. I didn't like the whole flipping over of the saucer using the thrusters. I felt like that was a little over the top for me and a little drawn out and a little too actiony. When you think about where they land versus where the saucer lands in the explosion, and somehow Kirk and Chekhov are totally fine. That scene didn't work for me.
Okay.
But
I think that's a totally fair criticism.
That's probably about it, because everything else in it that was kind of like a little cheesy is very Trek-like, so I've accepted those things a long time ago. You know, I know one of the big problems people have is the music, or the Beastie Boys blowing up all the swarm, and you know, if you've seen Voyager, then it's hard to have a problem with that, because Voyager did that like twice.
Unless you have a problem with it in Voyager 2.
Unless you have a problem with it in Voyager 2, yeah. But you can't say that. At least you can say, well, you know, they've done it before, kind of thing.
Sure.
So there's some precedent for it, I guess. But what did you guys think?
Specifically about the Beastie Boys scene.
That or something else you didn't like, yeah.
I mean, I didn't mind it. It wasn't like the greatest thing ever. I kind of rolled my eyes a bit, but it was fun. I was on board for the ride. It was an interesting callback to the first movie, so I don't have a whole lot of complaints about Star Trek Beyond, but I guess I have a complaint about the Kelvin verse as a whole, and that is the movies as a trilogy. I mean, I guess there's going to be a fourth one, but the three movies that we have, they don't really form much of a coherent overarching plot. Like, everyone is very segmented and different. They're like, each of these movies, they end and they lead into something that you think you're going to see in the next film, and then you don't. Yeah. And there's none of that. And like we talked about the side characters, so some of those little inconsistencies bothered me.
That's a very good point.
But I still really like Star Trek Beyond. Like, I'm going to forgive it some of the issues, because I mean, again, this is a reboot of the original series, and sometimes you'd have a random cast member that was, you know, in an episode and then they weren't, and still don't know exactly when Chekhov joined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's there, sometimes he's not.
Right.
He's a part-time Starfleet officer
Part-time.
until the movies.
Mm-hmm.
He just hangs out of the outpost.
Yeah.
No, it's a
He's strong.
it's a good point though. I mean, because that was when you think about the original Star Trek movies, 2, 3, and 4 are a very connected
Yes.
trilogy.
Really good trilogy.
But that's about it. None of the other movies out of the original 10 are really connected to each other at
2,
all.
3, and 4 are their own little separate trilogy, but 1, 5, and 6, right? They really don't have too much to do with each other.
Yeah, I mean,
They
the-
stand alone.
Six kind of wraps things up nicely.
Yeah.
It's a nice send-off, but other than that, like...
I mean, they track the fact that the Enterprise is destroyed and need a new one.
Right.
They do that, like, First Contact has the new Enterprise,
Right.
and things like that, and that's fine. But, but from a story perspective, you're right. There seems to be, whatever happens between the movies
Mhm.
doesn't seem to affect the movies.
Right.
Mhm.
Infamously, the comic book series, if you read those, each of these movies have had like a countdown event where there's been like a comic book mini-series outside of the regular series to get you to buy more comics. That has been something that's supposed to like lead up to the movie, and every time, like, it's been an enjoyable thing to read, but every time it's like, okay, this has no bearing on the film whatsoever.
Right.
Which I understand, because you don't want to punish people who aren't going to read the comics and make them feel like they're missing something. But it's like, at least give us something if I'm taking the time to read this.
But as we've talked before, I mean, like the 4-shot Khan story, or not, maybe it wasn't 4, maybe it was 5 or 6, whatever. The limited Khan comic book makes
Yeah.
Into Darkness a better movie.
It really does. Well, and there's a Nero miniseries too that
Yes.
makes
I
him a
loved
much
that.
more. Yeah, it makes him a much more fleshed out villain.
And so like that's a weird thing because you and I read the comic books.
Yeah.
And look, if you're a Trekkie, if you like comic books, IDW's Star Trek comic books have been fantastic.
Yep. And it ends next month with issue 60.
And then gets picked up again.
Right. It's gonna be a whole new series.
Yeah, a new
but
There were
series.
apparently
so.
some deleted scenes that I never saw for the first Kelvin movie, and Nero's ship wasn't just floating in space for 25
Right,
years.
right.
They had been kidnapped by Klingons
Right.
for
There's
a long
lot
time.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, they were in a prison and
So again, like Klingons are like a part of this entire franchise, but they're always like behind the scenes.
we never see them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You see them with a mask. The miniseries leading up to Star Trek Beyond dealt a lot with Klingons. Like it was like this all-out Klingon war. There was a really fascinating like albino Klingon who was a little bit extra bloodthirsty than the average Klingon.
Sure.
And he had an interesting kind of inferiority complex based on the fact that he was different than the other Klingons. So very Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer with a murderous streak.
Of course.
I love it.
And yeah, that was a really good story. Of course, it had no bearing on the film, but that's fine. Like it was a good standalone thing, and I guess it kind of it made up for the fact that they promised us Klingons almost in a sense and didn't deliver.
Right. Ryan, how about you though? I have a feeling there's a few things that bothered you more.
It's more nitpicky things.
Go
Like,
for it.
there's some CGI that was really bad. Specifically
Which
for
part?
me, like when he's riding the motorcycle and he jumps off and the camera pans up while he's like in the air. That looked incredibly fake and cheesy, and it seemed like a scene that was probably made for the 3D version of the movie.
That's fair.
Usually when I see the standard version of the 3D movies, there's always some CG that looks just kind of off in the normal version, and I feel like that was it.
I felt the CG at the very beginning, those little aliens. I felt like
Oh yeah, that was weak too. That was
Yeah,
weak too.
I did feel
Yeah.
like that was rough.
That was another one.
They were
Yeah.
pretty obviously.
So I guess
not real.
that was so rough. I don't think I noticed the motorcycle.
Oh,
You
yeah.
gave it a pass after that.
Well,
I
that
wouldn't
was
say that,
actually
but-
the only two places I can really think of that I noticed it. And most of the other shots, when all the ships and, there's a lot of CG. CG heavy
Sure,
movie.
yeah.
Those are really the only two scenes I noticed that in. And the other thing that kind of touches on what Rachel said, where it was kind of a simple plot line. It was very paint by numbers, like, villain, here's our plan, we're going to have a distraction, we're going to do this, we're going to beam him out, then we're going
As
to beam
soon
the
as I
second
saw
group out.
Yorktown and he made the snow globe comment, I was like, oh, that's getting destroyed.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. I mean, it's obviously yeah.
That's going down.
But is that a fault of the movie, or is that just the fact that we're all old enough to have seen
Enough
pretty much
movies?
everything? Like,
Well,
there's not many surprises. in
Trek's
films.
That's
never
fair.
been big on surprise plots.
Right.
Except for Khan, that was a surprise. In Into Darkness.
Well,
Stop.
But that's what I'm saying. If you look at, there's 13 movies, and I think we can say that about
Well, I'm just talking
one
about the Kelvin
movie.
universe.
but I'm just saying,
That's
out
a
of
third of the Kelvin universe.
I'm talking about since both franchises, it's one franchise with both timelines still existing together now. You have 13 movies, and there's one convoluted plot out of 13 movies. Everything else, they're all still pretty straightforward.
When I say that,
Yeah.
I would have rather
I don't know.
explored, like,
They might overcomplicate themselves, but they're not complicated
Right.
plots.
I'm thinking of 5, That one was...
Well, they go to the center of the galaxy to find God, and it's an alien. That's the
Right.
plot.
You know?
I just would have liked to have seen like some time travel or some quantum mechanics or something like that, rather than
Like that next
hey,
movie.
Enterprise
You get
gets destroyed, and then we're stuck on an alien planet, and then we got to defeat this guy, and you know.
You get time travel in the next movie, or at least
Maybe
universe
I
travel.
don't know anything about the next movie,
So the next movie will have Chris Hemsworth reprising George Kirk, and Kirk will meet each other.
Well, I hope.
So
I think that will be a more interesting plot than this one was.
it may be. Yeah,
It was a good movie,
Right.
but the plot was just very more simple than I probably.
But
would have
there's,
liked.
like, you and I already talked about this before, like, my fear is that it's going to be very cliche. It's going to be like, oh, he gets to meet the dad that he never grew up with.
Yeah,
And
it could be that way.
And it's going to be a little cheesy and campy, and then there's going to be this like thing where like, oh, but you know, your dad has to die for the timeline to
Redemption
continue.
arc.
Like, yeah, so it's like you get to like meet the dad you never had, and then he's going to die again in the end anyways, which I've already
Doctor
seen.
Who.
Right, I've already seen it on Doctor Who.
or the
Couple
Flash.
times. Yeah. It's
There
been done
are
before.
some rumors though that's actually not what it is. It's not actually
I hope
time
not. I hope
travel, but they're gonna cross to the Prime timeline,
Oh, yeah.
and he'll meet the George Kirk that doesn't die.
Sure.
And
I
that
don't
will
like
be
that.
that's the rumor. Now, obviously, you know,
Who knows?
time travel
Very
seems
early
easier,
right now.
right?
Yeah.
But what did you guys before we you know, because we're getting closer on time here? I do want to talk a little bit about the new ship, the Franklin, which real quick.
Is it a new ship? Like,
Well, okay, so it's an old
well,
ship,
yeah, I get the
but
movie was an old
it was
ship.
we've never seen that
Okay.
before. One quick
Is that
thing about
referenced
it,
anywhere?
no,
Wasn't it named after Justin Lin's dad?
it was
Oh.
Franklin, and if you look at the
Oh.
dedication plaque, there's actually a bigger space between the K and the L.
You do that.
I thought that was awesome. I thought that was such a cool
So,
tribute
yeah.
because he talks about how his dad got him into Star Trek, and he watched Star
Cool.
Trek with his dad, and that's very important to me personally. I just thought
Right.
that was a really cool way to dedicate something to his dad.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then for those who are upset about the ship's registry number, because there's a ton of complication stuff there, and it's been explained, TrekCore.com has a really cool article about it, but it's actually a really simple explanation. It's the NX-326 because Leonard Nimoy's birthday is March 26th, and that's why they named it. They gave it the NX-326.
But in universe, that doesn't make sense.
In
Derek.
universe, it doesn't make sense, but they did. TrekCore does have a really solid article explaining why. It's detailed, so if you're interested, go read that. We will not get into that here. But what did you guys think of the ship? It being there, how
I
it was
really liked
used?
like the look of all the panels being much older than the original. I thought the prop department really nailed it on that, and like the actual ship design was pretty cool. I didn't have any problem with it. I thought it was neat.
I like the seatbelts.
I like that it was like falling apart. Yeah, the seatbelts were really cool. Yeah,
They-
that was
they
that's a
were
good
really
point.
neat
Just a little
looking.
detail, but it definitely was neat. I noticed it. Yeah. But I did like that it was kind of rattling apart. Like,
Yeah.
just, you know, very un-Enterprise like. You know. It's,
The shape was good. The design was good. If you're looking at it from like the top, there's between the saucer section and the nacelles, there's like a few like almost like layered, tiered V shapes that I don't know if it's just me, but it looked vaguely Klingon. Like just the way it was
interesting.
tiered, it looked very rough and angular as opposed to a lot of the more smoother, needlessly aerodynamic look of
Right.
the rest of the Starfleet ships that we've seen.
I thought it was a beautiful ship.
It
I
is.
thought it was really cool. It really brought back some memories about Star Trek 3, where the ship's kind of beat up,
Right.
but they've got to use it and they do their best with it kind of thing. I kind of like that. Not seeing the super pristine, everything is advanced technology all the time is fun because it takes them out of their element and they have to be a little more creative.
Roughing it a bit.
But yeah, so any final thoughts on Star Trek Beyond? Anything else you want to talk about before we talk just a little bit about the new TV show?
No, it was a good movie.
It
I
was.
really enjoyed it.
But on the nitpicking thing, I want to know if anyone else noticed this. I don't know if you noticed. It bothered me. I asked you guys after we saw it. Did anyone else notice that Spock's bangs were like
yeah, it was a
angular the
little
entire
weird.
movie? Yeah, it's
I
like,
did
it's like,
notice that about halfway through the movie. I was like,
who put his wig on? Like
Yeah,
the entire
I feel
movie.
like the rest.
See, I never noticed it either time that I
No,
watched
I
it.
did.
Okay, it happened.
The last two movies, I feel like were his real hair. He just cut, and
Right,
this time it was a wig.
Must have been.
So
It's interesting.
that's probably in right next.
He was running around too much, and his wig just kept going off kilter.
Yeah, I didn't notice that particularly, but I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I love the new uniforms. I love the Franklin.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about the costumes. The jacket was really cool.
Oh,
I really liked the jacket.
Beautiful.
Every uniform they show in that movie for the Federation people, I love.
The only part I didn't like was on the round
guys.
weird thing on the back of the regular uniform. I like the shoulder pad on the front, the way the thing looks, but on the back there's this round thing that connects the two shoulder pads. That was the only. But I mean, if you're not seeing it behind.
I'll have to take a look at that. I didn't notice, but
Yeah, I think it was to make it more flattering on the way it sits on your body. Something I don't know. But it kind of bothered me. But the front looked really cool, and the jacket looked really cool. I really like that jacket.
I also really liked what Kirk wore on the Yorktown when he was talking to the Commodore. It replaced the very militaristic uniforms worn in Into Darkness.
Oh, right.
And just made it a little more spacey, I guess. Was
the one that Spock changed into after he got injured and he was on the Franklin? Was that? He was wearing a different uniform at that point, I think.
He was wearing what Kirk and Chekhov were wearing. They were basically, that was what was in the lifeboats, basically, is what that is. But it was cool. There were 3 different distinct uniforms throughout the movie, and I thought they all were just awesome.
Yeah. Costume department did a great job with that.
So we got about 10 minutes left. So let's talk just for a little bit about Star Trek Discovery. For those who don't know, that is the new series coming to CBS All-Access, which is their streaming service, in January 2017.
And Netflix in some countries.
And Netflix in 188 countries, not here.
Yeah.
Because they want us to buy CBS All-Access.
That's right, and I will.
Right. I think it's only $5 a month or something.
It's cheap. I think it's $5.99. Okay. But yeah, it's cheap. The first episode will air on CBS, but this weekend at San Diego Comic-Con, they announced the name of the show. We didn't know what it was, so it's Star Trek Discovery. It will take place in the Prime universe, and we got to look at the ship. So do you guys have any comments or thoughts about any of that stuff?
I only have a few things that I'm hoping for the show. I've come up with a few different ideas that I think would be really cool to see. I want to see poor Wesley Crusher get a nice little send-off. The fact that he was just kind of booted out because he wasn't popular.
We love you, Will Wheaton.
Yeah, I mean, now he's an internet star, and he is a Comic-Con favorite, and he is a Twitter personality.
Oh, yeah.
He's great. So I want to see him come on a few episodes and then be gone. Now, I don't know if it'll work based on the registry number. You try to explain that to me.
So you don't want a Captain Wesley Crusher.
No.
Okay.
Second thing, I want Sulu's daughter to be the captain, and I want George Takei and Brad Takei to
cameo. That's a big wish list. That'd be really neat.
Right.
That'd be interesting, though.
That's just, as a fan of what has already come before, I'd like to see. Now, I totally want to see a new ship, new crew, new adventures, new planets.
But even when the Next Generation started, there was Bones, a very, very old Bones. And, of course, Next Generation also saw guest stars like Scotty and Spock for 2 episodes. So.
Sarek.
Yeah, that's right.
But they did say, Brian Fuller, the showrunner, has said that there will not be any veteran Star Trek actors returning in their roles for the first season.
Now, does that include Scott Bakula?
I assume.
I don't know if I call him veteran. I mean,
he was a captain for 4 years, so I think that counts. But I think the thing that does mean is we could get a guy like Jeffrey Combs, who's played several characters, get a new bit. Because I've loved every character he's ever played on Star Trek, so that would be neat. We could see some of those character actors.
Right. Even what's his name in First Contact? He was a couple different roles. The
Zephyr Cochrane.
Yes.
Can we see
the guy from Babe. What's his name?
The farmer.
Yeah. I love him so much, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. But yeah, he's been in a couple of different characters, and so that is pretty cool. What about you guys? Do you have any thoughts about the name of the show? What the ship looks like?
The name is. It's the name. It's nothing exciting. It's whatever.
It's not any better or worse than Beyond.
Yeah, it just doesn't really inspire anything in me.
As Star Trek goes, their names have always been very blunt and to the point. It's never been very creative.
The original series, the Next Generation.
Voyager will go on a long voyage.
So,
and that's all fair. I
really liked that it's named after a space shuttle. I thought that was really cool since NASA named a space shuttle after the Star Trek Enterprise.
Right.
Now Star Trek is naming a ship after a NASA space shuttle. I thought that was just a really cool. It's that whole art influencing real life and back and forth.
Or is this like a time travel paradox? Where you go back in time and become the thing that inspired you.
They have to go back to.
There's a term for that, but I can't remember what it's called.
That's cool. I'm good with that. I love time travel, so do that all you want.
The ship is cool. I mean, that's the video. You get to see 10 seconds of the ship, and from what I can see, it looks cool. And then my only wish is that Scott Bakula comes on.
It's an interesting...
I will buy CBS All-Access if you do that.
Ooh, all right. It's an interesting design. It's very similar to Ralph McQuarrie's design for Star Trek Phase 2. It was the scrapped design that ended up being the refit in the motion picture.
But like you said, it's just test footage, which means we're going to see probably an overhaul.
They've actually said at the show, there was another panel at SDCC that I didn't even know about that happened after the big Star Trek 51. And they said straight up, they had less than 3 weeks to put this together. 5 days of design went into the ship, and they didn't understand why it was actually being shown to the public. I think Brian Fuller might have gone a little bit rogue on that. I don't know. I'm cool with it. Whatever works. But yeah, it's not the final design of the ship. The CGI is rough. I mean, we watched it on the big TV. It is a very
It looks
basic
more like
design.
a rendering.
Yeah.
But it's better than the first Star Trek Discovery trailer we got, which was basically just Star Trek, new ships, new crew,
planets.
Yeah.
I will say
the
that
non-teaser.
I absolutely love the font. And I know that's so weird, but it looks really good.
And the Starfleet, the Delta Shield design
I love
is
that.
Kind of cool split. I like that.
I like that the word Discovery is in the gold like Deep Space Nine and Voyager were, but it's also a little bit different because it looks like hull plating if you look. Yeah. It's got bolts on it and stuff like that. So I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about since it's in the Prime universe, so that means all of the TV shows and movies that came before the 2009 one, it's in that universe. That's been confirmed. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about when it might take place? I mean, the registry number is NCC 1031. Mm-hmm.
So after Enterprise?
Well, the Enterprise is the 1701. So the registry implies that it's earlier, but the tech on the ship is very mixed because the tech is based more on the Undiscovered Country era than it is the original series era.
Well, a lot of the original rumors were saying that it was going to take place between Undiscovered Country and Next Generation, which is a fairly
large amount of time.
65 years.
But there's a lot they could do there without stepping on anybody else's toes.
Yeah, you can show the Enterprise B, the Enterprise C.
Right.
You've got almost 70 years of history to show.
Yeah.
Which I'm cool with. I kind of wish it was later, but
I do too. I wish it was after.
Oh yeah, I wish post Deep Space Nine.
Post Nemesis.
Yeah.
Post Nemesis. But yeah, the number's throwing me off. The design of the ship is throwing me off because it's not the final design, but there's so much of it looks old and new that it's hard to
maybe
tell.
It's an old ship that's been in service for a long time or something.
There's been a lot of thoughts about that. Yeah, that it's been refit a couple of times. It's a very old ship that they just kind of keep as a workhorse kind of thing. And I'm fine with that. I mean, it'd be cool to see a ship that's not brand new for a change.
Well, that's what I liked about Beyond's ship is that the Franklin that they found is that it was old and it was whatever, and hopefully that sticks with that in the show. That'll make it more interesting, I think.
As a cosplayer, I would prefer if it was a later time so that we see a whole new set of visual uniforms. Because if it is that time between TNG and Undiscovered Country, we've already seen that.
Yeah, it's going to be the Wrath of Khan era uniforms and at some point switch over.
Right.
I feel like going really early or really late in the timeline would be more interesting rather than being somewhere in the middle. But
we've already seen really, really early.
Right, and one of the problems Enterprise had was they could only do so much without encroaching on Kirk's territory.
Yeah.
You could only meet so many species that you've never seen before people are like, well, how come we never saw them again?
Yes.
That was always one of my major issues with Enterprise is they haven't gone very far. How can we never see any of these species again?
Mm-hmm. So much later would give them a lot more freedom to create new and unique characters and species.
Yeah, which
as
I think
well as
cool.
pull from everything else.
Exactly.
I mean,
well, just think if you're post Nemesis, if you're the Star Trek Online timeline, think of all of the stories you can use, all of the references that you can leverage, all of the cameos that you can have to launch different stories to tie the universe together. Because that's what Star Trek did. I mean, Deep Space Nine starts with Picard and the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Voyager starts at Deep Space Nine. And so I think it would be cool to see those types of things.
Deep Space Nine technically starts with a reference to Best of Both Worlds.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
And that would be fun to see, and if I can use the term, it enterprises on their past shows, because, you can reference previous shows and be like, what's that all about? People are going to go back, they're going to watch those episodes, and they're going to get into shows that maybe some of the newer fans are like, hey, this is a cool new sci-fi show, and they're going to get back into the old stuff, because if it's self-referential to a point where it's not...
it's not cumbersome,
but interesting, then yeah.
I don't see why we aren't making it.
Right.
Brian Fuller's got his hands full with American Gods.
Yeah, because we know they love their fan films, right?
But look at... we can just be consultants.
Too soon?
Look at the people they have working on the show. Brian Fuller started in season 4 of Voyager. He's written a bunch of episodes. He loves Trek. He is a Trekkie. He was quoted at SDCC saying he didn't want to be a writer. He wanted to be a Star Trek writer. That's a quote. And you've got Robert Meyer, who directed 2 Star Trek movies.
He's a big deal.
You've got Kristen Beyer, who's written what are considered to be some of the best Star Trek books that have come out in this century. She wrote all the post-Voyager stories.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And they're great. I've read, I think, 4 of them so far, and they're awesome. She knows the characters. She's a character writer. She wrote on the show, and, she understands the characters very well. It's a really cool group of people who know the franchise. And I think that's why Beyond was so successful, because you had people who know and love the franchise.
Unlike Nemesis, which was made by someone who couldn't be bothered to watch an episode of Next Gen.
Right. That creates some issues, though, and it creates some issues for me with J.J. Abrams, because he just flat out said that he wasn't a Star Trek fan, And I'm not saying you have to be, but if you're going to run a franchise...
It helps.
You know what I mean? That's why his work on Star Wars is amazing, because that's his thing.
Right.
Tim Burton was lucky enough to pull off not being a comic book fan and still have 2 of the best Batman films, but he got lucky. He got flat out lucky.
But who's to say that he didn't read source material first?
He did read source
material.
He did his research, unlike other people.
Yeah, some people don't, and I think it's important that you do. Look, Star Trek is 50 years old now. You can't ignore that history, especially now that they've admitted what they're doing. They've got 2 timelines that reference each other.
Yeah.
And that's complicated. You can't ignore that. So, all right. Any final thoughts for people on the movie or the show?
No.
Just live long and prosper?
No, look what I can do with my hands.
I can't, yes, I cannot do the Vulcan salute. It's the biggest joke on a Trekkie that you can have. You're good friends. All right, so actually we're going to have a special episode that's going to come out the day after this one, which is going to be some San Diego Comic-Con coverage with our returning guest, Ian of House of Turner Cosplay. It's not going to be live streamed. But we're going to be recording it and putting it out on the podcast. So look out for that one. Guys, where can people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you about different stuff?
Well, if you want to talk to me about Star Trek, I'm going to refer you to someone else across the table.
Refer to me, it's fine.
But you can find me at Buster Props on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. I like to talk about cool stuff. So yeah, that's
like Star Trek,
not Star Trek.
Yeah.
Anything else almost, and I will be
You've
interested.
done fantastic, though.
Yeah, I've done all right.
Zach, what about you, buddy?
I am on Twitter at AvengerZS. So I'm more of a social media lurker than a contributor these days on Twitter. I retweet some things. I read a lot, but yeah.
Fair enough, right?
Oh, I'm a super siren. I do super siren-y things with super siren-y people, and yeah.
All right.
That's my life.
And I'm the Star Trek dude. I'm doing my Trek Watch where I'm reviewing literally everything. You can check out my very spoiler-filled Star Trek Beyond review at thestartrekdude.com along with some other episodes. And you can find all of our stuff at griddaily.com, Grid Daily on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Tumblr and Twitch. We have a YouTube page. You can catch our weekly podcast, Screen Heroes. New episodes come out every Wednesday. Or you can join us live at twitch.tv/griddaily, Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Central. You can join the chat. We had some technical difficulties tonight, but we got back. We got a little bit of chatting going on, but sorry about that. We'll fix it for next time. we have lots of content out there. Lots of reviews and top lists. Ray, I think you're working on an article, the top 10 movies that need a reboot.
Yes.
So that's cool. I'm looking forward to that one.
Thank you.
So that'll be fun.
Not all reboots are bad.
Very
Some
true.
reboots are.
Not.
Bad ones really ruin it for the good ones.
That's true.
I make a point to say in the very first paragraph that there are some reboots we're not even asking for, and I'm like, I'm looking at you, Point Break.
Yeah, there you go.
Like,
There you go.
Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters.
Well,
I didn't ask for a Ghostbusters remake, but I didn't hate it.
We're not going to get into
we're not gonna. It's another podcast.
Listen to our last podcast.
Yeah, listen to our last week's podcast to find out what we thought about that. Look, if you're enjoying the podcast, if you like what you do and you want to support us, we have a Patreon at patreon.com/griddaily. We got lots of cool perks and different levels and stuff. Every dollar helps. It helps us get new equipment so we can have maybe more than one microphone. That would be really cool to help the audio levels a bit.
Awesome.
So if you could do that, that would be great. Otherwise, subscribe on iTunes. You can go to screen-heroes.com to do that directly. We have a feed burner now for people who use anything other than iTunes. But leave us a review. If you leave us a review and a rating on iTunes, we'll be sure to give you a shout out on the podcast. We really would appreciate that.